Good afternoon, and Freilich and Shushan Purim to everybody. Last week we had gone through much of the story in Meseches Shabbos about Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai. Just to recap, that when Rebbe Yehuda spoke positively about the Romans, Rebbe Yossi, who was in on the discussion, did not respond, and Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai denigrated the Romans and said that everything they were doing was for their own selfish purposes. And consequently, Rebbe Yehuda was appointed as the chief spokesperson. Rebbe Yossi was sent off in exile to Tzipori, and Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai was condemned to death, for which he went and hid himself in a cave with his son. And famous, well-known story. We didn't get through the entire story last week, but I wanted to share some insights now into the story. I actually have a bit of a chiddush, a bit of a novel insight in my own, kind of to tie the entire story together, which we'll do as we approach the end of the story. But much of what I'm sharing with you comes from a sefer called Chiddushie Rebbe Shimon, which is a sefer giving insights into the various things Chazal tell us about the life of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai. And before I forget, this shir is sponsored in memory of Chana Devora Bas Avraham. So one question he brings down, or a point that he discusses in the name of Rebbe Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin, is why is it that the story of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai is found specifically in Meseches Shabbos? And he contends that it isn't at random. You know, when you learn Gemara, you will discover that the Gemara frequently is a stream of consciousness. And when you learn Meseches Shabbos, as we've been going through, even though obviously the official topic of the Meseches is Shabbos, but as discussion leads to discussion, things have a tendency to kind of stray off the mark from the official topic of the Masechta. So is it just at random that the story ended up in Meseches Shabbos, or is there specifically a reason why? And so interestingly, they bring down that in the Zohar, it says about Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, Rebbe Yehuda Ka'orile Shabbos, that Rebbe Yehuda would refer to Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai as Shabbos. Why? Because just like the 6 days of the week are all blessed because of how we spend our day every Shabbos, so too Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, his holiness and his Torah study, they bless all of the days around him. And he went so far as to say that just as Shabbos is kadosh laHashem, just as Shabbos is sanctified to God, so too Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai was sanctified by Hashem. Furthermore, the Zohar quotes Eliyahu Navi as saying that a pasuk says in Yeshaya, "Ukurasa l'Shabbos oneg," you should refer to Shabbos as a delight. L'kdosh Hashem mechubed, what is sanctified to God is honorable. And Eliyahu Navi said, who is Kadosh Hashem? Who is the one who is sanctified to Hashem? That's Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai. So you see from the Zohar that it's making a clear connection between Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai and Shabbos. Why? So the simple pshat level explanation is that, as the Gemara tells us in Meseches Brachos, Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai was of the opinion that nobody should be working for a living, because if you work for a living, then you don't have any opportunity in which to create a relationship with God, which is a lifetime pursuit. And therefore, he felt that everybody should just spend their entire life in spiritual pursuits. By the way, the Gemara comments on that many tried to do like Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai and were not successful. Therefore, the Gemara is saying that this is not a path which is recommended for everybody. But for Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, this path worked. And therefore, for him, every single day was Shabbos. Because every single day, rather than being involved in the pursuit of material success, Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai spent his days as if it was Shabbos, not doing any work, and just focused on Hashem. Another reason brought down for the discussion of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai in the cave being found in Meseches Shabbos is because it was there in the cave that Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai developed his spiritual worldview, which led to the composition of the Zohar. And it's brought down in Sfarim that the primary time when one should be focused on studying works of Kabbalah, works of Jewish mysticism, is on Shabbos. So for Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, his entire life in the cave was like Shabbos because he was focused on the study of Kabbalah, which is, again, primarily meant to be studied on Shabbos. Now, as we mentioned, give me a moment over here, Rabbi Yehuda praised the Romans. And in consequence, Rabbi Yehuda became the chief spokesperson. Rabbi Yossi, who was quiet, was exiled. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he was sentenced to death. And the Chiddushie HaRim offers a very fascinating look at this story. And he says as follows, and he says this is his own Chiddush. He didn't find this anyplace else. But he says that we know that the Asara Haruge Malchus, the 10 martyrs that we discuss in our davening on Yom Kippur and also in the keynotes on Tisha B'Av, they were a replacement for the 10 brothers of Yosef who were responsible for the sale of Yosef. And he says that this whole story and what occurred with Rebbe Yehuda, with Rebbe Yossi and Rebbe Shimon, this is all resulting from the story of the sale of Yosef HaTzadik. And he explains as follows. Rebbe Yehuda, well, that one's pretty easy, that he is the Gilgal, he is a reincarnation of Yehuda, the son of Yaakov Avinu. I'm sorry, please give me a moment. That was Rebbe Yehuda. And Rebbe Yehuda was the one who spoke up and said, what are we going to gain if we kill Yosef and engage in a cover-up of Yosef's murder? And therefore, he was the one who protected Yosef HaTzadik and saved his life. So that's the Rebbe Yehuda in the story is the replacement for Yehuda, the brother of Yosef. Yosef HaTzadik, even though obviously he was not responsible for his own sale, but as we know, he was not exactly completely innocent either. That Yosef had engaged in speaking Lashon Hara, in speaking ill of others, and therefore it was his ill speaking about his brothers which brought about his ultimate sale. And he is represented in this story by Rebbe Yossi. Not the exact same name as Yosef, but close enough. Finally, Yosef HaTzadik's brother Shimon, he wanted to kill Yosef. The minute they saw Yosef coming, he said to his brothers, "Here comes the dreamer. Let's go kill him." And that's why we find that when Yosef sent his brothers back to his father, he jailed Shimon because he didn't want him to make any trouble. So therefore, Shimon, Yosef's brother, he is represented in the story by Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai. And therefore he explains that going back now to the story here of Yosef and connecting it to our Gemara. So our Gemara said that Rebbe Yehuda was appointed as the Rosh HaMidabrim B'chol Makom, as the chief spokesperson in all places. Why? Because we find by Yehuda, the son of Yaakov, he was never afraid to speak up. And therefore, in reward from that, and the fact that he saved Yosef's life, and just like the original Yehuda was not afraid to speak up, so Rebbe Yehuda became the Rosh HaMidabrim B'chol Makom. He became the chief spokesperson in all places. We will continue with this insight, Meseches Shabbos, in the next shir. Thank you for listening.